So.
I'm sorry. It makes noise. It makes so much noise.
It's not that you made noise, it's just it's like you came from the carnival or something. It's okay. But you were hungry and you wanted something to eat.
Yeah, I really chose what I wanted to do right now.
Yeah.
I was eating this.
And I'm glad you did that because it helps me make a point. Because another version of me some time ago might not have done that. Might have been too awkward or embarrassed to make noise or to disturb everybody. But if it's something that I really needed, then then it wouldn't matter. Because in reality, I can't affect anyone unless they choose to be affected in a way. So thank you for being a part of the synchronicity that helped make that point. The timing was absolutely perfect. And that's how things can work. So, yeah, so not choosing to act because of fear or rejection. And it's not just standing in front of you guys and talking about metaphysics and laws of energy. It can be anything, being in the U-Bahn, the public transit, and just wanting to do something, there's something on the floor, go reach for it. It could be as small as that, or to talk on the phone while other people are there if you need to make a call. It could be experienced in a number of different ways, including yourself within a conversation, or if you're in school and being afraid to speak up or raise your hand, out of concern maybe what other people might think of what you have to say. So, not to pick on you, but that's how I was. So, yeah, and it came from beliefs of not being good enough. And then I finally asked myself, not good enough for what? It doesn't make sense. For what? I don't know. And there was a belief if others respond a certain way, then perhaps there was something wrong with me. And that particular one sort of happened growing up. Whenever my mother didn't like the circumstances, or if I wasn't always hanging out with people, or maybe somebody didn't call me back, she would say, "What's wrong? This is wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be." And I got this idea in my head that if someone's upset with me or not responding to me in the way that I would like, that there must be something wrong. And then that definition just sort of ran rampant and just had me not to do anything. And it also goes with an assumptions of who I thought I was supposed to be. And like I said, I don't know. We all don't know, but maybe we grew up with these assumptions that we're supposed to be successful. But I guess that depends on your definition of success. If you look at it in terms of growth, and everyone can be very successful, be successful at every moment. So it depends how you want to look at it. And, the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s sort of rat races people were in, where things were more structured, there was less flexibility. If you don't have a typical office job for 40 years and then get a pension, you don't have to do that now. But my dad has conversation with my sister because she's waiting tables, because she's still discovering herself what she wants to do. And he's like, you need this kind of job, this is safe, and it's old thinking. I mean, it's okay, that's how they grew up, that's how we sort of grew up when we were young and that we saw. And the challenge for us is growing up, for most of us, is growing up in two different eras basically, pre-internet and internet, when so many things are much more possible, but we're stuck with the beliefs of the old, and we need to transform them. Not just with technology and opportunities, but perhaps parenting as well. How we teach our children, how we support them, and not instill these kinds of beliefs. But there's a great opportunity because we can be that defining generation that transforms and changes it for the future, for the rest to come. Because everyone else who comes next isn't going to have those experiences of growing up when times were a bit simpler. Doesn't mean they're complicated now, they're just more complex, but also more exciting. So what I come to realize as I was transforming this fear of rejection is that you're actually rejecting yourself when you don't choose the state you prefer, when you don't choose to act on what you need to do. It's self-rejection. And it's not actually people that you were afraid of, or it's someone telling you, no, you're no good, don't do this, this is terrible. It's actually, you're just afraid of the reflection of your own self-rejection, because that's all that is. That's all that could ever, that's the only way that could ever happen of someone doing that and it affecting you is if you already believe it and it's just reflecting that back. So I thought if I stay quiet, then I won't get that reflection of someone telling me I'm no good. But things happen anyway. You have relationships, you might get dumped sometimes and you feel like it's because you're no good, when in reality, maybe that it just doesn't serve you anymore. We can grow apart from people, and we do that when there's no growth left. And this was also very important for me, was my definition of relationships that had a huge effect. Because growing up, I thought relationships are you find someone to love you and to be with you so you're happy. And then you watch the Disney movies and you live happily ever after. But it's not true. It's not in alignment, I could say. You could still live happily ever after, but it won't be specifically for that one reason. So, but if you define relationships, all relationships, as you are attracted to someone because of the growth that brings you, that mirror that you reflect to each other all the time, and that's different. And when the growth is used up and decide to go separate ways, then that's fine too. But maybe not. Maybe if you're in a relationship, you can stay together and you can grow in your own way. So using each other, you don't know, and that's the point. But it's okay. There's a very high divorce rate, and I don't think we can always make those agreements, till death do us part. You could try. It could happen. But I think it's important to be okay if it doesn't. Because if there's no growth left, it doesn't serve you. You'll get bored, or you'll do things that are out of alignment. And that was something very, very life-changing for me when I changed that definition of relationships. Because then you also don't depend on them. They just become part of your growth and integrated with everything else. So that's what I'd like to share on that subject. That was very, very helpful. So, and just because others might have an experience from me that they don't prefer doesn't mean there is something wrong with me. I was at the lake a couple months ago, and this was the day I was choosing my natural state all day. I was doing like an exercise. I was determined to transform this fear of how I am, affects somebody else. And often we will get a reflection of those fears, but in order to transform them, to show that we're different people. And so I was sitting on the bench at the Fazanavizi, and I was watching a video on my phone, and I was laughing. I forgot what I was watching, but I thought it was pretty funny. And then I hear out of nowhere, Gott. Angry German man. And he was sort of like, he was jogging. And I looked up and I saw him jogging away. I was like, did that really happen? I wasn't bothering anybody, I wasn't talking to anybody. But before, that still would have bothered me. And it came down to realizing that that it's not true, that other people are just experiencing their own beliefs and it has nothing to do with me. It still helps them because it can put them in touch with what doesn't feel good, what's out of alignment. I still wasn't sure, but 10 minutes later I got up and started to walk the path home, and then I saw him coming up again, and I was just like, is this guy for real? And then I was just walking, not smiling, but like, you know, and then I sort of looked up at him as we were passing, and he goes, and I was like, I knew it. I knew that was him. I knew he did that. But why? And then it made sense to me. And I noticed that I didn't react the way I did before because I wasn't buying into that belief anymore from the reflection, because it became clear to me I don't know this person. It has nothing to do with me. And if you're stuck with people, like I stuck with one lady at work who who didn't really care for my existence. and I realized that she suffered from low self-esteem as well, and that she always needed attention. And I just became more aware and just sort of kept quiet. Because sometimes she would say stuff and then I would say stupid things as well, just to sort of be funny. And you know, I realized what was going on, and whenever she would get mad at me or say something, I noticed I'd still feel a little bit hurt. So I just kept looking at that, and I just kept looking and kept going back to this, and trying to and seeing things for what they actually are, as reflections, and that they had nothing to do with me, because we can't affect anybody else unless they agree to be affected. And this was something that was very important for me to clarify, is that we really can't affect anyone. However, this is important, however, you do something, because if I go kick your feet, you know, it's going to affect you in some way. But what you're doing is reflecting. So not affecting, but reflecting. And you know, there's some people that won't like you because you're reflecting maybe stuff they're not doing, or aspects of themselves that they don't like. You know, if sometimes I said stupid things in the office to get attention here and there, when they saw that or experienced that, it was like a mirror, and they would just get very angry. But instead of looking at themselves, it was projected towards me. And these are the kinds of people you'll attract yourself to for growth. You can have that. You can attract yourself to somebody who appreciates you for who you are, who accepts you for who you are. And maybe that's something that you're not entirely doing, but you can attract yourself to that situation so they can show you that. Show you what you can choose. And there are other people who will show you what you are choosing that you don't prefer. And this is how growth works. It doesn't waste any time, but you need to look at these circumstances in order to get the benefit, in order to see what it's navigating you towards. And it's just navigating you towards transformation, so you can experience more joy and act on things more freely. So, as I said, you have no idea who you're supposed to be, and no one really does. So all you can do is just choose to be who you prefer to be now. And it has nothing to do with who you've been. You know, maybe you've done something you regret. There's one that sticks in my mind about like 10, 12 years ago. I was lifeguarding at a lake, and I had some friends from Germany visiting, and one of my friends hooked up with the lifeguard, one of the lady lifeguards at the lake, and I had a terrible night that night. I was the designated driver. I was up really late. Those guys were wearing me out in general. And she came up to, and there's no one, we opened up, and I was at the picnic table, I had my head down. She came up to me, and she was like, "Oh, I was really wild last night, huh?" And in all this giddy mood, and I was just like, what is she trying to do? And I was not feeling good, and I said, what was it? She said, "It was pretty wild last night," and I said, "Pretty slutty." Just, if you know me, it's not something that I would say, but an 18-year-old version of me, it's not like him either, but he did say it. And that's still on my mind because sometimes I think about that because that's the only time I ever said someone, and it sort of hurt them because she started crying afterwards. And so of course I went up immediately and I apologized. But you can say that to a lot of people and it might not do anything. So if you look at it from different parameters, if she felt that were true about herself and she reacted, my actions navigated her to those feelings to see that wasn't true, because I was just in a mood. I knew that wasn't true. And I was thought if you kiss one dude, and I was thinking, why is she so upset? Like, it's obviously not true. But that was sort of her thing to work out. I apologized, did what I needed to do, and I can look back on that and say, I don't have to choose to feel guilty about that. I said something that wasn't in alignment with what I preferred, but I can choose that at every moment now. There was nothing really, quote unquote wrong with it. It was, it was valid. It's not what I preferred, and you can learn from that. But it did serve her. Whether she used it or not, it still did.